She treated me like a servant, but when I reclaimed my life, she begged for one more chance. When I first married her, I thought I was the luckiest man alive. She was intelligent, accomplished, and passionate about her work as a lawyer. I admired her dedication, her assertiveness in courtrooms, the way her voice never trembled even in the face of injustice. I stood beside her with pride, even if I was living quietly in her shadow. But after the honeymoon phase faded, I began to see a version of her that the world never saw. She never raised her voice, but the way she treated me was louder than any scream. Slowly, her affection turned into commands, her smiles into sighs of irritation. I was no longer her partner. I was the one carrying her briefcase, cooking her dinner, ironing her shirts, and waiting quietly while she came home past midnight reeking of control and cold perfume. She made it clear. I had to stay by her side, not as a husband but as a servant. If I dared to speak about returning to my own career, she reminded me I had no future in it anyway. I had abandoned my profession when we moved to her city for her job, believing she would support me in return. But instead of support I got silence. My dreams became inconvenient shadows trailing her heels. She took my sacrifices like oxygen, never once thanking me. And yet I stayed. Maybe out of love. Maybe out of fear. Maybe because I didn't know who I was anymore. Days became weeks, and weeks bled into months. I stopped meeting friends. I stopped reading. I stopped breathing fully. I existed only to serve her needs. Her success stories echoed through our home, but I was not a part of them. I was invisible in the house I kept spotless, in the meals I prepared with love, in the loneliness I swallowed like pills. Her words became knives, delivered softly but cutting deeper than rage. She told her colleagues I chose the domestic life, while mocking me behind closed doors for being jobless. At night, she didn't even turn toward me. I often lay beside her, wide awake, feeling smaller than ever. The tipping point came one winter evening. I had made her favorite dish, lit candles, and tried once more to bridge the cold gap between us. She walked in, glanced at the table, and laughed. "You really think romance will cover the stench of your failure?" That night, something broke inside me, not loudly but in silence. I didn't argue. I just sat there, staring at the flickering candle while she walked into her study without touching a single bite. And that's when I decided I would return to my career, not for revenge, not to prove anything to her, but to find myself again, because I was tired of being a ghost in my own story. It wasn't easy. The industry had moved on, had no contacts, no portfolio, just a broken man with trembling hands and fading confidence. But I showed up, day after day. I worked jobs that paid nothing. I stayed up rewriting drafts, creating presentations, volunteering, and relearning what I thought I'd lost. People half my age passed me by with ease, but I didn't let it crush me. Every small gig I landed, every small smile from someone who saw my worth, added a brick to the foundation I was rebuilding. I kept my distance from her, though we lived under the same roof. She barely noticed. Her world revolved around power and courtroom victories. Months passed. Then one day, she came home to find a magazine with my name on the cover sitting on the kitchen counter. I had been featured for a groundbreaking project. Her fingers trembled as she held it. Her eyes scanned every word, not with pride, but with disbelief. I watched from the hallway as she sank into the chair, staring at the page, lost in thoughts that now frightened her. That night she cooked dinner, for the first time in years. She called me to the table softly, a strange gentleness in her voice. I sat silently across from her. She served me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was an apology wrapped in routine. But it was too late. I had seen her truth too clearly. She began asking questions about my projects, my days, my thoughts. She complimented my clothes, bought me gifts, but everything felt rehearsed. It wasn't love. It was regret. It was fear that I no longer needed her. And she was right. I didn't. Slowly I started staying out late, at meetings, workshops, studios. And she waited up. her eyes now tired with worry instead of superiority. Once she even wept, saying she missed us. But what she missed wasn't love, it was control. She missed having someone beneath her, someone who never walked ahead. But I was walking ahead now, not to hurt her, but to reclaim the man I had lost. One day, at a public event, we were both invited. She stood among colleagues, clapping as I took the stage to speak. I could feel her gaze burning through the applause. After the event, she stood alone, looking like a statue carved by pride and pain. I approached, and she tried to hold my hand. I gently stepped away. She smiled, but her eyes shattered. In that moment I knew. I had won something more valuable than her acceptance. I had won myself back. But what happened next? Even I wasn't prepared for. The silence between us grew heavier with each passing day. She tried to pull me back into the life I had once begged her to notice, but I had already outgrown the space she once kept me confined in. I wasn't angry anymore. I had no need for revenge. What I felt now was detachment. The kind that comes not from bitterness, but healing. She began waking earlier, preparing breakfast, even folding my laundry with trembling hands. Her eyes followed me like a shadow, begging to be acknowledged. But the damage was done. You can't pour kindness into a cup you shattered with years of neglect. She booked a couples retreat. I didn't go. She showed up at one of my events uninvited and sat in the front row, clapping louder than anyone else. I thanked the audience politely, but never looked in her direction. That night she cried on the kitchen floor. Loud, broken sobs. She screamed that I had changed. That I had become heartless. That I didn't see how hard she was trying. But I had seen. I had witnessed her efforts every single day for years when she didn't try. When she watched me shrink into a shell. When she left me to battle my worth alone. Now her tears came not from love but loss. She had finally seen the real me. Only after I was gone from her world. But fate is a strange thing. Just when I thought the story was ending, life handed me a twist I didn't see coming. One rainy afternoon I received a letter. No signature. No return address. Just a short message. You should know what she's hiding. The truth about why she kept you small. My heart raced. The words repeated in my mind like thunder. At first I dismissed it, thinking it was someone bitter or jealous. But curiosity sank its claws into my chest. That night I searched her drawers, her study, her laptop. Something I never did before, even when she belittled me. And what I found chilled me to my bones. Emails. Dozens. Some dating back to our first year of marriage. Between her and someone at a top firm I once dreamed of working with. She had contacted them herself, persuading them not to hire me. She claimed I was mentally unstable. That I had violent tendencies. That I was unreliable and emotionally manipulative. Lies, layered in legal-sounding jargon that destroyed my reputation before it even began. And worse, she had done it repeatedly with every opportunity that had come my way. Every rejection I blamed on myself was actually orchestrated by the one person I trusted the most. My hands trembled. My breath caught. My entire body went numb. I sat there, staring at the screen as rain crashed against the windows. Everything I endured was not just emotional abuse. It was sabotage. She hadn't just ignored my dreams. She had murdered them in silence. Out of what? Insecurity. Fear I might one day rise above her. Or was it simply power? I didn't know. But in that moment I felt something stronger than anger. Clarity. She came home that night, humming softly, holding a bouquet of roses. She said she wanted to start over. I looked into her eyes, calm but unreadable, and said, "Sure." Smiled. Kissed her forehead. Told her I was going to prepare dinner. She laughed in relief, holding me a little tighter than usual. But I wasn't back. I was just starting the final chapter she never saw coming. Over the next few days, I gathered evidence. Made copies of every email, every document. I consulted quietly with a friend in journalism, someone with power and integrity. I told him everything, shared my story, not as a man seeking revenge, but as a man exposing a hidden truth. He agreed to run a feature, one that would protect my identity but bring her professional mask crashing down. The day the article was published, everything changed. Headlines read, "Behind the gavel. Hidden abuse in high-profile legal marriage." It went viral. It wasn't just a story of a lawyer wife and her broken husband. It became a symbol of how emotional manipulation doesn't always look like bruises, of how success doesn't excuse silence, of how men too can be victims, silenced by pride and shame. She lost her position within days. Clients withdrew. Her firm distanced themselves. Her name became poison in legal circles. And for the first time, she was the one watching life move on without her. She showed up at my door weeks later. No makeup, no pride. Just a woman who once ruled my world, now standing at its threshold. Broken, trembling, asking for another chance. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I didn't know I would lose you like this." I looked at her and replied gently, "You didn't lose me now. You lost me the moment you saw me as your servant, not your soulmate." She fell to her knees, begged, promised to rebuild everything. But I couldn't unsee what she had done. I couldn't unknow the choices she made behind my back while I folded her clothes and believed in her dreams. Forgiveness may come in time, but love, that had long since died. I closed the door slowly, not out of hatred, but out of mercy, for myself. Now, I live in a small apartment with sunlight that kisses every corner. My days are filled with purpose. My nights are quiet, peaceful. I speak at conferences, mentor others rebuilding their confidence. And sometimes I get emails from strangers who say my story gave them the courage to leave a toxic love. That's all I ever wanted. Not fame. Not revenge. Just the truth to be heard. As for her, I heard she moved out of the city. Started over in a town where no one knows her name. Maybe she finally understands the pain of being invisible. And me. I didn't just survive her. I outgrew her. That's the twist life saved for the end. Sometimes, the greatest revenge is simply finding joy in the freedom they thought you'd never earn.